It looks like we're live. Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. Hope we're live. This is, we don't get to see the audience, but the green button says that we're good. My name is Brad Tyre. I'm the editor of Montana Free Press, and I'm here today, as you know, if you signed up for this, with our Helena local reporter, Jovan Wagner, and our environmental reporter based in Bozeman, Amanda Eggert. What you've signed up to join us for is a reporting journey. This is something that we do just about quarterly to give Montana Free Press members a little insight kind of behind the curtain in our newsroom and some of the work that we do and how and why we go about doing it. Today we're going to be talking about our reporter residency program, which is something that we started last summer and continued for the second year this summer. And that's a program we came up with where for a week each summer we pluck a reporter out of the Montana Free Press newsroom and in negotiation with another newsroom somewhere around the state, wherever it may be, we embed our reporter in their newsroom for a week to do a reporting project. There's a wide variety of reporting projects that we do in that process. But one of the things that we kind of hope to get out of it is, one, let our reporters kind of get out of their silos, their usual beats or their usual locations, and learn something a little bit more about a part of the state that they may not have had an opportunity to get to know or report on. And then also, we hope by being embedded in newsrooms and community papers around the state that we get to take advantage of the expertise in those newsrooms, those editors and those reporters, to help introduce us and our work and our reporters to their territory. And sometimes we hope that those newsrooms get a little benefit as well out of having, an extra pair of reporting hands, maybe to take on a project that they've been a little short-staffed to do. So the whole program is, oriented towards supporting Montana's media landscape writ large, and supporting our reporters in their kind of continuing development of learning their way around the state. It's been a pretty exciting program. We get pretty good feedback from it, and I believe the reporters usually have a good time getting the change of scene as well. So I've got some questions that I've prepared for Amanda and Jovan, and then we've got some time towards the end of the program for audience Q&A. If anybody out there has a question along the way, please feel free to either put it in chat or if you look down below the chat on your Crowdcast screen, there's a little question mark. You can click that question and that will find its way through to us, and we will try to address that question as well. Should probably apologize for my background, not my professional background, but my actual screen background here. I've been working at home for a week or so. I'm coming down off a case of COVID, so I'm not in the office. I'm in the kind of sloppy basement annex here at my home in Helena. The other part of this is that can be a little bit awkward. We can't see you out there in the audience. You can see us. And I know at least I am kind of keeping an eye on a couple of different screens, so it might look like my head is bobbling around all over the place. I am trying to pay attention to a couple of things. Let's jump right into it because we've got, for the first time, two reporters on this reporting journey and a lot of material to cover. Again, introduce Jovan Wagner. In the middle of my screen, I guess the names are up there. Jovan has been with us since November of last year. Is that right? Coming up on a year. And helped launch our Montana Free Press local reporting project, where we have a reporter dedicated to hyperlocal coverage in a particular community. Amanda Eggert has been here with Montana Free Press on the environmental beat and the energy beat and all the associated beats since, is it
2021.
3 or 4 years now? Yeah. Okay.
Coming up in 4.
Coming up on January 21. One of our first full-time hires, and she reports based out of Bozeman. So you'll get to know each of them a little bit better as we go. So I think let's just start right into some questions. I hope I covered all my intro stuff correctly. So let's start with Jovan, because this is the first year that you've had an opportunity to participate in the reporting residency program. It's Amanda's second year. So we sent you to Shoto, and we actually did a reporting residence in Shoto at the Acantha in 23 as well. Alex Sackerson went out that year. Were you familiar with the Shoto area at all, or was this brand new to you? What was
Yeah, so Shoto is actually pretty familiar with me. I grew up on the Blackfeet Reservation, specifically Heart Butte, which is about an hour drive north of Shoto. So like driving up to Helena or Missoula, sometimes even Bozeman. I usually take that route. But yeah, it was always driving through. So this residency let me have like a chance to stay there for a week and explore the town. Yeah.
Good. Well, I assume that on your drive-throughs you had not had an opportunity to stop and spend some time in the Acantha newsroom. So this would have been a first. What kind of first impressions did you walk away with walking in? The Shoto Acantha, for those of you who may not know, has been just a stalwart institution in that community for 30 years,
Yeah.
ballpark of 30 years, run by our friend Melody Martinson. Who she and her husband Jeff run that paper and have for a good long while. They famously never missed a deadline in all that time. What were your impressions walking into that newsroom?
It was really cool. It was like so cool. It was a very like a traditional kind of old school setup, where Melody is like basically the editor in chief, and her husband runs the business side of the Acantha, and they work on like the like original like advertisement business model, and they got to see like the prints of other Acantha news issues. They were like folding them in the back room. Community members would kind of pop in and like resubscribe to their subscription. Yeah, it was really cool. Everything for me as an early career reporter is a lot of virtual meetings and a lot of our newsroom spread out across the state. So it was really cool to see how like a really local newsroom looked like.
Yeah, they're set up different than we are at Montana Free Press. Obviously, we're a hybrid newsroom, and not just when I have COVID, but we've got staff in Billings and Missoula and Bozeman and Great Falls. So but the Acantha has got I don't know that it's on Main Street literally, but they have a downtown retail storefront. And how many reporters does the Acantha have now?
So Melody, she's like running the thing, and I think she has one full-time reporter, and then two part-time reporters that come in throughout the week. And then also her husband's there. And it's really nice how it's set up. And it the campus is like it looks like a house on a street in a neighborhood right behind like the main street. So it blends in pretty well, except they have a huge sign that says Shoto Acantha, and walking distance to like basically any business.
Beautiful, beautiful. All right. So what is the first thing that happened? I assume you walked in there on a Monday morning and
Oh
hit the
yeah.
ground some kind of running. So
Yeah.
how did the process start for you? What did you do first?
So me and Melody were emailing the week prior. I was up there for a week. And we kind of established that I was going to kind of stay in that local beat realm. So I kind of took over her her role in covering the annual city budget. And being a Helena local reporter, I had a little bit of experience covering the school district budget and city government budget. So I thought this would be like a great opportunity to take a bite off of that reporting, also take that reporting off of her hands. She said it was like the first time in her in her career where She didn't need to write the city budget story, which always happy to help. And she got to basically kind of introduce me to the city mayor, city staff. And by the time I called them to set up, interview appointments for the following week, they were like, "Oh, we were like expecting your phone call," which was really great, really great. So I walked in Monday morning, introduced myself to Melody, gave a quick rundown, and then headed out the front door down like a half a block to city hall to meet with the city mayor.
Wonderful. All right. Um, if I recall from sort of our planning conversations, we landed you there at the Acantha during, I think, what Melody called Budget Week. What was the scale of what the paper was covering that week? There were they cover multiple
Gosh.
communities, multiple departments. Like what was the big project
Yeah,
push
so
that week?
the camp that covers, of course, Shoto, but basically they try to cover the entire Teton County. And I remember this week, the Shoto School Board was also having their budget meeting, which she got to focus more on, as well as, it was August, so there were fire calls, there was um, also a city, they opened up they opened up public comment for the city budget. So it kind of like started conversations of different things that the city was planning to pay for, which like led into another cool little story about law enforcement.
So this was kind of an all hands on deck in the Acantha newsroom. Everybody was scrambling around covering these various departmental and community budgets that week. Is that kind of what was
Yes,
going on?
yes, and I believe one of the reporters was also covering the school is getting ready to start, so covering like the cool like beginning school year activities more specifically.
Okay. Well, you've done some city budget coverage in Helena, although you probably haven't had the pleasure in Helena of having a whole newsroom helping you cover those issues. What stood out, if anything, what stood out for you in reporting on a city budget in a community like that, in a newsroom context like that? What kind of things did you learn?
Yeah, like being in a smaller community, smaller than Helena. Um, a lot of my reporting was very I guess like quick. I obviously set up these interviews prior, so I knew who I was going to talk to. But like reporting wise, if I needed a question answered or a document, I would just like walk down the road to the city hall and like talk with the city finance director or the city mayor, or if I needed to talk to the county, Teton County Sheriff, their office was also just down the road, and it was very much like boots on the ground reporting. And not that I don't do that here in Helena, but a lot of my sources, like their neighbors, they know Melody, they know the Acantha, and they know each other. So I think that was like a pretty cool takeaway. Just how close knit my sources were.
So it sounds like it was a little bit of a perspective shift. That you normally wouldn't think of Helena as a big city, but
Yeah, yeah.
compared to the concision of Shoto, where you can just kind of walk down the street and you're where you need to be. Um, yeah, very cool. Um, hopefully this isn't too repetitive, but like in what ways was that experience different from the way you go about covering your beat in Helena?
Yeah, yeah. So of course, Helena, covering like city government. A lot of the time, I find when I'm researching it, it's a lot of stuff I find like online, or I'm like a phone call away from trying to figure out, where I can find like a past recording or a past resolution, or question so and so. For Shoto, I found that it was easiest to just head down like in person, just a quick little walk down to City Hall, and like talk to the finance director or ask him where can I find this like this past like, budget recording or yeah, whatever. And they were very like it was just so quick. I realized how quickly it was to get like the information I needed to double check to for follow ups. And it's nice. I feel like it kind of flew by quicker than that type of a story doing it here in Helena.
Okay, I'm gonna need some help. My mic seems to be periodically getting muted. That could be Clara in the background doing that for y'all's benefit. But if you see my lips moving and aren't hearing anything, somebody please flag it for me. What did you take away from that experience that you were able to bring back that helps inform your kind of regular reporting beat duties in Helena?
Yeah, so I kind of like really appreciating the like relationships with the people in the community I'm reporting on. For Helena, it's really cool to visit with the mayor or have the mayor's number on hand, or visit with the commission, law enforcement, fire officials. But in this smaller community, it's these people are quite literally like your neighbor or the person that's maybe making your coffee, or the sheriff, and uh, trying to um, understand that you're as a reporter you have a job, whether it's a like a sticky story or if it's a simple budget story. Maintaining those relationships with your sources is like very important, and Melody has managed to do it seamlessly like for the past 30 years, and understanding that the community like can't the what we do provides a service for Shoto, and the folks of Shoto like completely understand that, and also have been supporting the newspaper.
Yeah,
Youth
I think
subscription.
Melody is the. I think if you looked up institutional knowledge in the dictionary, there would probably be a picture of Melody, and of course the virtues, the benefits that come from being. I mean, it kind of feels like it sort of mirrors what we're trying to do with the whole local project here at Montana Free Press is acknowledging the importance of a reporter living in this community, knowing the players, spending months and years kind of developing those relationships and developing those beats. You can't really replicate that kind of institutional knowledge and understanding of how the relationships work and how that feeds into the stories that come up on a daily basis, unless you're just right there in it. So I, I hope that was a really great experience for you, kind of bolstering what we're trying to do with local, which is in part trying to certainly not trying to replace daily newspapers, in a place like Helena or anywhere else, but trying to augment the coverage, and the local knowledge and expertise that we can bring to reporting on a local community. So, um, on the flip side of that, did you come across any particular challenges reporting in a smaller, rural, tight knit town that maybe you didn't anticipated before you got there in the thick of it?
I think, yeah, I think a challenge probably stems off of that, like how um how do you approach these people that you need to talk to when there's kind of like a tough situation you're trying to explain, specifically, there was for this year the city decided to um budget for their law enforcement. So the county Teton County, the sheriff's office uh kind of patrols the Shoto area since they don't have an established police department. And there, before I got there, there was some discussions between the city of Shoto and then the county sheriff, law enforcement, of like how much we should budget to pay for our law enforcement. And the sheriff, great guy to talk to, made himself available. Same with the city mayor. They were definitely at two different ends of the spectrum, but at the end of each interview, they're like we know I know the mayor, I know the sheriff, they're great people, but how I guess like not to step on toes, but just to I guess report enough around yeah whole roundedly where to keep your sources and keep that trust, but also know that this is a story, and the community of Shoto really needs to understand what's going on here between law enforcement in
Well,
the
that sounds
city.
like basically conflict management. Obviously, some stories. Well, I mean, the Acantha does all sorts of stories. I mean, they do a cat got stuck in a tree stories, which are fun. But when you're talking about policy conflicts, it's not abstract. It's at a distance. It's so
Yeah,
which is a great reporting skill, because there are going to be conflicts, and there are going to be policy differences, and navigating the parties in those without with giving everybody on multiple sides their due respect when you're going to be seeing them the next morning at the coffee shop, or when they're going to be
absolutely.
walking into the office and saying, um, commenting on your story. Um, I kind of feel like this next question we sort of covered that. The importance of maintaining relationships with community members in the area when you know that any random neighbor is likely to be a source or a subject of your next story. Um, so I guess I'll close with you with kind of outside of work, during the week you spent in Shoto, which was kind of new to you. Did you discover any favorite new places, any new aspects or assets of that community that you really enjoyed or that surprised you? Could have been
Yeah.
a new favorite restaurant, or a park or recreational opportunity in the area. I don't know. Could be anything while you were out there. What did you find?
Yeah, so there was a few projects which I kind of found out about going through the city budget, that they had some park renovations, which was really cool. And they actually just opened the past 6 months like a new bar and grill, um, called the Wagon Wheel, and it was it's really really cute, really nice eatery. I walked across the street and like down the road, and it was there, and had lunch there one time, and it it's really cool. It's really like very modern. It's the person that was waiting on me during that day said something like, oh, you should see it during like after like 5:30, like this place is the spot, which is really cool to see. Small town in Teton County, Shoto, still like growing and still like having new businesses, and there's a few new coffee shops that I just personally recognized, just driving through the town. Yeah, no, yeah. So I think next time I'm coming through, or whenever I'm going to meet my family, I'm gonna suggest the Wagon Wheel in Shoto, Montana.
Nice. Kind of make you wish we could get some new restaurants opening in Helena. Or you can dream. Great. Thank you so much. And just remind us again, what stories you produced that the Acantha published. Was it just the one city budget story?
Yes, it was
Yeah.
the 2024 Shoto city budget story on the Acantha.
Great. Wonderful. All right. Super. Thank you, Jovan. Gonna switch over here to Amanda with apologies for making you wait. We couldn't figure out a way to organize this where we went back and forth, so we're going in turn. Amanda went to Ekalaka, which is how far a drive from your home in Bozeman?
300 miles.
Yeah. So spent some quality road time, and went to the Eaglelacca Eagle out there. This was our first reporting residency with the Eagle, although we do have a good relationship with that paper, based largely on our deputy editor, Eric Dietrich. He spends part of his summer vacation every year going out to Eaglelacca for the Dinosaur Festival. That's not what it's called, is it?
The Shindig.
The Shindig, yes, of course. That's one of Eric's favorite places. So Eaglelacca has been on our radar for a while. For you, last summer you went to Charcusta News in Pablo. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
over in the western part of the state. What was initially appealing to you this year about going to Eaglelacca?
Well, I grew up just outside of Billings, so Eastern Montana is kind of home for me, but I actually haven't spent a ton of time east of Billings. So that was one of the appeals. And the other is that I've been tracking an energy project proposal that's located down in that area, the Snowy River Carbon Sequestration Project. So that was one thing that I wanted to do too, is just kind of go and check out the site of that proposed carbon storage project.
And did you actually get a chance to do that? Because we're going to pivot into what your actual residency story turned out to be.
Yeah, I did. After work one day, I went out and cruised around and checked out this site, this BLM land that's part of that site. So that was good for me to just kind of get more familiarity with that project, because I'll continue to write about Snowy River as news develops on it. But yeah, we ultimately landed on writing about mule deer decline, and that was something that Eric Lovick, the editor of Eaglelacca Eagle, and I and you kind of all landed on when we were getting ourselves oriented towards the reporter residencies and trying to figure out some potential stories that could come out of them this go round. Mm-hmm. And that was something I was really interested in, because I've heard some chattering at Fish and Wildlife Commission meetings about mule deer decline, and I'd seen some figures suggesting that mule deer in southeastern Montana are down 40% over the 10-year average, and I was just eager to learn more about why that is and how that decline has been received by people who live in the area, and if there's habitat concerns, if there was management concerns, if there's some of all of these things. Winter kill, I was just really eager to learn more about what's going on there.
And of course, that's an important story, especially in that, we certainly have statewide interest in game management, as it comes out of the Capitol, as it comes out of FWMP. But that hunting mule deer is also a large economic driver in that community, right?
Yeah, yes. Right. In large part because mule deer tags have been so easy to get. So it's really easy to get an over-the-counter mule deer tag, both as a resident and a non-resident. So it's really been a popular hunting spot for people from inside Montana and also to the east of us, the Dakotas, Minnesota. They get a lot of traffic from the Midwest.
Right. So that supports the local motels, supports the local restaurants. So had the Eagle done a significant amount of reporting on this issue before you got there? Were we building on coverage that they had done, or was this one of those opportunities where it's a story they had been waiting to do and had an opportunity with an extra reporter on deck? Because what is the staffing at the Eagle?
Right. So it's just Eric Lovick. He's a one-man band over there. And that's something he's written about a little bit, and had been tracking and had been looking for an opportunity to kind of dive in a little bit more and do something at greater length. Because it's just him in the newsroom, you can imagine he gets pulled in all kinds of directions, and some of those larger stories are a little bit more difficult to do when you're in that position. So he was
well, and you say larger story. How long did that story turn out to be?
Oh man. I want to say it came in around 1,800 to 2,000 words, maybe. That's what comes to mind, but I'm not sure.
So we co-published that with the Eagle, and were they able to run it in one issue, or did they end up serializing it? I don't recall.
We actually lucked out. He had gotten a heads up that there was going to be a couple of full page ads appearing in the paper that we had targeted for co-publishing it with him. So they had more space to run a longer story. So that worked out pretty well.
That's something that we always have to think about, especially when we're collaborating on a project with a small community newsroom, because the Eagle is a weekly, right? And we have the luxury, as a digital publication, of we don't have to worry about page count. We don't have to worry about, is there literal logistical room for the piece, in the newsprint newspaper, because it's all pixels for us. And we definitely have to keep in mind when we're working on these projects, we want to produce something that can be republished, by our partner newspaper. Sometimes we'll go to 4,000 or 5,000 words on a feature, and that would fill up a whole issue if they canned all their advertising. So part of the coordination there. So what surprised you? What did you learn? What was new that you got by virtue of being on the ground in Ekalaka reporting out that story, that you might not have found or foreseen from your home desk in Bozeman?
I was surprised that there are so many residents that have been concerned about this issue for a long time, for not just the last few years when we've had drought and some really tough winters, but like going back a decade or more. I wasn't able to include everyone that I interviewed in the story, but I remember speaking with one landowner who's done block management for, I want to say, more than 20 years. And he says it's been between 10 and 15 since he's allowed hunting of mule deer on his property, because he's been concerned about the decline for that long. So that was something that was really striking to me, just that it's not like it's not kind of a novel issue that's recently cropped up, that these concerns go back for quite some time among people who've lived in the area.
That's really interesting, and that speaks to one of the benefits of this residency program. I think we find stories that in that community, that's not new. That's not to say it's not news, but it's not new. And from our perches outside the community, we just might not have seen that. I remember last year, Aaron went out to Glendive, and there was just this epic opus of a story on city government that sounds like it was all consuming locally, but we wouldn't have known that it was there until we got there. So I think we do get these benefits out of that program of putting ourselves in those newsrooms, embedding ourselves in those communities, and see things that we just can't see from the outside. I've been really pleased with the quality of the stories that have come out of this program all the way around, and it sounds like this was an excellent example. What did you learn? What surprised you? What confirmed for you about the story's reception locally once we got it published?
It was largely very positive, and it included some messages from folks on social media who said, "Thank you. We've been worried about this. By the way, did you know that this policy decision also is incorporated in this larger landscape over mule deer management?" And that was helpful to hear. That was affirming for a reporter, as a reporter, to hear that that the story landed well with people who are in these communities. I should also say it's definitely something that Fish, Wildlife, and Parks is sensitive about, I would say. I got a text message from a spokesperson that I coordinate with regularly there at the agency the night before it went up, asking for a link as soon as it went up. And I was thinking, okay, they're gearing up for a bit of a, I don't know, they're bracing themselves, I suppose I should say. And then I had a couple conversations the next day, and it was a lot of back and forth that way. So on the one hand, It's on the one hand, I'm glad that we did the reporting because it's obviously something that so many people care about, Fish, Wildlife, and Parks included. On the other hand, those sorts of touchy stories where you're getting kind of a little bit of armchair criticism is hard too. So, yeah.
Did it feel like this was kind of a story and maybe even a degree of controversy that had been sort of hiding out there in plain sight, and then we put 2,000 words to it? And do we have any indication that that the story might have influenced policy, or at least policy discussions going forward? Did our story light a fire?
Yeah, I'll take that in a couple. I'll take that in a couple chunks. The first I'll say is there has been coverage of this issue by national outlets and some statewide outlets as well. Brett French has covered it a little bit for the Billings Gazette. Tom Kuglin, who formerly worked for the Helena Independent Record, I think has also written a little bit about mule deer decline, but he, of course, is now with the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation. There has definitely been some coverage. And there's a lot of chatter about it on hunting forums. I did a little reading up before I went out and listened to some podcasts where people were discussing various things associated with mule deer management. There's definitely been some coverage of it. But perhaps it hasn't garnered quite as much attention as like elk management, which garners quite a bit of interest when season setting happens at the commission. And then as to the second part, did it light a fire? That is a good question. And we'll see when the commission initiates its next round of season setting. That's really kind of where the rubber meets the road in terms of tag allocation. And the other thing that I'll be watching for is to see if the Montana legislature is supportive of efforts to fund more mule deer research, because that's one thing where Montana is kind of lacking a little bit relative to some of its other peers, including places like Wyoming. So I'll be interested to see if projects looking at some of the habitat and predation and hunting factors that are putting pressure on mule deer get a little more science brains focused at them.
And just to clarify for folks who haven't read the story yet, there's a local faction that is proposing a degree of solution to this. Basically, they think that FWP has simply been too generous with tags out in that area, and so are proposing limitations there. So we'll see if that gains any traction. But I hear what we were able to do there is take a local story and kind of elevate it to a statewide audience. Even as we presented a concise, comprehensive view of the issue for a local audience, elevated it to a readership that otherwise might not. As you said, Brett and Tom have done some reporting on it, but it sounds like we were able to elevate the issue to statewide attention with this story.
I hope so.
Okay. Yeah. What did it feel like spending a week in the community of Ekalaka after spending the better part of your last decade in Bozeman, one of Montana's fastest growing cities? I don't know if Ekalaka is growing, but I feel pretty confident it's not growing at a Bozeman-like pace. How was that experience different from your usual duties? And yeah. Given that you do a lot of statewide reporting, just happens to be from your desk in Bozeman. You're not reporting strictly on Bozeman by any stretch, but reporting in that community, I imagine, felt qualitatively different in some ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was different. It was fun. Carter County is one of the least populated states in Montana. It's got about 1,400 residents. In the whole county. So yeah, that was fun. I was one night I went to a Mexican restaurant in town, and it was fun to just kind of be a fly on the wall and see how everyone kind of knew each other and how they interacted. and the various that was just kind of fun and different because it's obviously such a small town that everyone kind of knows one another, right? And to just see that play out in the course of a 1 or 2 hour meal was kind of fun. And then the other thing that really struck me was the level of, I would say the other thing that really struck me is that there are so many people in that community who wear so many hats. So one of the people I interviewed is a hunting guide in the winter, and in the summer he's a contractor, he's a builder, and he was telling me some of the other things he's done for his community, and it's a pretty long list. He serves on the city commission. He is a volunteer firefighter, EMT. He served on a wildlife advisory committee. Just all of these things, and I feel like his experience is not really that unique, right? Eric Levick, who I was working with at the Eagle Eagle, is also the town's football coach, and yeah, and it's something that I think I take for granted a little bit in Bozeman, in my community, where I can be a little bit more specialized. But in smaller communities, in order to get stuff done and keep people's houses safe and get medical service and do all of the things, you kind of have to do all of the things. That was really interesting and striking.
Yeah, that's really interesting, the way that in small communities like that, individual people really kind of hold the fabric together. That's a lot of work. And that's for a small community, Ekalaka is a very vibrant community, obviously. So it's neat to get to be able to meet some of those people. Same question I had for Jovan. While you were there, what kind of new places or assets, community assets, I guess, did you discover there?
Yeah. So
if you were going back, you would make sure to make another stop.
Yeah, I would go back to the Mexican cantina. That was delicious. They had giant margaritas. She brought it over, and I was like, "You don't have halves, do you?" She's like, "No, this is it." And also really good food. And it's really close to a lovely little state park I wasn't aware of called Medicine Racks. Let's see if maybe you guys can see this on my phone. And look at this fun stuff. There's all these holes in the sandstone formations over here. Really cool. So I would go back there. It's small, but really neat. Found a bunch of turkeys on a run one night. That was great. Yeah, it was a lovely time.
Well, and Jovan was able to stay with her family in the commute to Choteau during her residency. Where did you stay while you were out there?
I stayed at a little ADU that this woman and her husband had built on their property to rent out to people coming through. And as I understand it, they rented out frequently for hunters during hunting season. But it was this great little cabin. It was just like 2 or 3 blocks from the Ekalaka Eagle office, so it was great that way.
Nice. And you were there just before the start of hunting season, is that right?
Yeah, I think the week after I left, archery season opened.
Okay. And does that community get flooded with new temporary residents or travelers during hunting season? Is that?
Yeah, I get the impression that, especially during rifle season, that they get quite a few people coming into town. Like I said, a lot of folks coming from the east, from Minnesota, from the Dakotas, that area.
Okay. And then you mentioned at the beginning that initially one of your interests in Ekalaka was doing a little string reporting on a story that you had already been covering. Did you find any stories while you were out there, obviously working primarily on the mule deer story, but did you develop any story threads that you intend to continue exploring, or that another week in Ekalaka somewhere down the line would give you an opportunity to pursue?
Yeah, one that falls pretty squarely on my beat pertains to a proposed wind project. I think it's like still quite a few years out from ever being operational, and a lot of energy projects um, don't really ever make it to prime time. But there's a proposal for a pretty big wind project that is on the northern end of Carter County that would tie into this transmission line that is being developed between Bismarck, North Dakota area and Colstrip, Montana area. So that's kind of interesting and something that I'll be tracking to see if it comes to fruition. And then there's just a kind of little funny thing that I think is fascinating. And that's that the property boundaries in Ekalaka, for whatever reason, have been sloppily mapped, maybe, or they've shifted a little over time due to more accurate surveying technologies coming online. So where you think your property boundary is in Ekalaka might actually be different from what like the county planning documents say. And so evidently, if you want to buy a home in Ekalaka, it's really hard to get like a national bank to to offer you a mortgage. You have to go through local lenders because of that little weird feature of how Ekalaka has been surveyed.
Are you planning to explore buying a home in Ekalaka?
Not at the moment, but I will keep that in mind if yeah.
All right, and kind of last question. I understand that you may have brought home a souvenir from your reporting trip. Tell us
I
about
did
that.
get most of the ag in Carter County is dryland. And one of the crops that does pretty well with dryland farming is lentils. So I got like a whole bag of black lentils, and I've cooked with other kinds of lentils, but not this particular kind of lentils. So I'm on the hunt for recipe recommendations if any of you kind readers have any you'd like to send my way.
Oh, that's an excellent use for the chat. Black lentil recipes, if anybody's got them. Jovan, did you bring home any souvenirs from your trip?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I would stop at the gas station for like an energy drink on my way back to Heartview. But no, yeah, not nothing fun like that.
All right. Well, next year we'll have to keep in mind we can budget for a little souvenir, I think. Well, that brings us to the end of our scripted questions. I do see a an audience submitted question here, and let's see if we can answer that. So Andrew from Glasgow asks, how did the local reporters and editors accept your presence in their world? Did they consider you competition for stories? Or peers in the craft with a larger audience and wider mission? I don't know if we have a wider mission. Or were they sort of nonplussed given the huge workloads that local journalists have to navigate and resolve? This is a fascinating question, and when we try to kind of navigate on the front end, obviously we're not just arriving in these newsrooms and saying, "Hey, we're here." We're negotiating this with the editors in advance and making sure that they think there will be some benefit to them and that we won't be in there stepping on their toes or making anything harder for them, because journalists, especially in small community papers who are wearing 100 different hats, Eric is in Ekalaka is obviously a one-man newsroom. So he's taking pictures, he's doing layout, he's doing reporting. He may be delivering the papers for all I know. Let's have each of you talk about that a little bit. How were you accepted by the newsroom that you landed in? Let's start with Jovan. Sorry, let me give you a little direction here.
Yeah. So yeah, it was welcome. I mean, yeah, the other reporters, the 2 to 3 other reporters at the Acantha, were very welcoming. Granted, they were also like, it was a Monday morning, so they were already onto their beat, or out in the community. It was really it was cool to visit with one of the reporters, uh, who's I think lived in Fairfield, which is about, oh gosh, 14 or 17 miles also north of Shoto, but still in Teton County. And I got to like ask her like, like how is being a reporter with the Capitol, or in these smaller, in this in this community. And she got to like share some stories. And she like was asking me like what I did with Montana Free Press and Helena, and it was cool. We got to like kind of briefly share our stories and experience. Yeah, they were very welcoming. And I think like Melody like mentioned like that she was like very like grateful that the Cantha, they were very that they could take on a full-time reporter, or two part-time reporters. So yeah, it was really great. Any question I had, they would answer, yeah, perfectly. Or like, where should I eat, or if I need to talk to someone about something, they'll like definitely like share like a number, or like suggest like a person to reach out to. So yeah, they were really great. It was really cool to be in that small newsroom.
Yeah, that's really neat. I think there's only benefits for us in getting to a better understanding of the experience of reporters in all the different kind of venues around the state. The Billings Gazette newsroom is different from the Acantha newsroom, is different from the Ekalaka newsroom, and I think we all have an enormous amount of respect for the wear all the hats reporters in some of these smaller communities. And I just do remember like negotiating these with both Eric and Melody on the front end. I mean, one of the first questions is, do you have a literal desk, where our reporter can sit, not making any presumptions. And hopefully the experience of being in that newsroom where I hope these folks are not spending as much time on Zoom as we have to in our newsroom, just because of our partly hybrid, partly remote organization. There's a lot of romance associated with being in the room and being in the bullpen with all the reporters, and sometimes we miss out on some of that at Free Press just because of the way that we're organized. So same question for Amanda. What was your reception like?
Yeah, it was welcoming. And hi, Andrew McKean, for those of you who don't know, is an editor at Outdoor Life. Read a lot of his work, really appreciate it. So thanks for tuning in, and thanks for what you do. Yeah, it was pretty collaborative from the start. So we started having these conversations, and I want to say like maybe June of this year, about trying to find some partner newsrooms and land on some potential story ideas. And so once we landed on Mule Deer Decline as a story that we were hoping to partner on, we shared a little bit of material back and forth between us. And so it was very collaborative, and to the point where Eric definitely pointed me towards some of the big sources in the story that really helped pull it together. And he also reviewed it, of course, before publishing it. So that was great, right? Journalism is often very competitive, and it was really lovely to see that this is an important issue, and that collaboration was kind of the tack that we wanted to take there. So really, really grateful for Eric's help there.
Absolutely. That collaboration point is one that's worth hammering. It's part of Montana Free Press's DNA. This is one area, this reporting residency, where we really strive to create collaborative opportunities with newsrooms across the state that have expertise, that have local knowledge, that have institutional knowledge that we don't have. So how can we put ourselves in a position to to let our reporting benefit from those assets that are already embedded in those newsrooms, and hopefully, what can we give back? If your regular readers out there will notice that Montana Free Press does a lot of collaboration with other newsrooms. During the session, we collaborate on a legislative podcast with Yellowstone Public Radio and Montana Public Radio. Eric Dietrich is working on a collaboration with High Country News right now. Amanda is working on a collaboration with WyoFile for a story to come out later this year on the anniversary of wolf reintroduction in Yellowstone National Park. Obviously, that's an issue of great importance in Wyoming and Montana. So we're always looking for these opportunities where we can collaborate. That's not to say that we're not also trying to, get there first on some of the big stories, but there are a lot of opportunities where getting there first isn't necessarily the first the primary directive on a story, especially with a lot of the kind of non-breaking but really sort of in-depth news that we try to concentrate on. So collaboration is definitely a key to this. And I should also mention for folks who are kind of interested in this program and how we do it, that as we move forward with it next year, one of our big plans is to kind of expand the program by offering some reciprocity to these newsrooms who welcome us into their communities to collaborate on a project. We're going to try to set it up so that we can create an opportunity for, say, a reporter from the Acantha or a reporter from the Eagle, or where else did we do? I should know off the top of my head.
Miles City. Was it Mara in Miles City? And then Eric
Mara did a project in Miles City, and Eric did a project with the Lewistown News Argus. So we did 4 this year. So we're going to try to create an opportunity where our newsroom in Helena, probably ideally during the legislative session, where we can host reporters from these newsrooms in return and give them an opportunity to come do a week's reporting in Helena, with collaborating with our newsroom, which kind of specializes in capital coverage as well. So that's one of the areas where we want to extend the project. And should also mention that doing this costs some money, largely travel costs and lodging costs while we're in those communities. And we're able to do that because we fundraise around these particular reporting residencies. So readers like you, Montana Free Press readers and Montana Free Press donors are directly responsible for our capacity to kind of do this project, and all the work we do. But this in particular. So thank you for that support. I think this is a members only event, so everybody here is a direct supporter of Montana Free Press. We quite literally could not be doing this kind of work, could not be exploring these kinds of initiatives and collaborations without that support. So thank you. This is you did this, and we really appreciate it. I hope the conversation today has described some of the benefits that we and hopefully the partner papers get out of this. And look at this, we're right at 12:59. We're just almost on the dot with our hour. I didn't see another audience question out there, so hopefully we're not leaving anything on the table. Again, this is this reporting journey that we're doing here is a quarterly product that we produce for members. We really appreciate you being here and being part of the conversation. Appreciate your support of Montana Free Press. And with that, I also would like to thank our membership manager, Claire Overholt, who is on the background here, setting us all up, Jovan and Amanda and I, with this venue and keeping things rolling behind the scenes. Thanks very much for that. And I believe we were at the end of it. So thanks so much for joining us, and we look forward to hearing you. Look forward to seeing you, not seeing you, talking with you at our next reporting journey. Thanks.